Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing section 3 of the CSEC Spanish paper 2, which is the contextual dialogue. All right, let's get into it. All right, CSEC Spanish contextual dialogue. And of course, I give my credit to Bing Images for providing me with this image that you see on screen. And of course, I tried to select an image that would depict a dialogue, right? Because that would be fitting, right? So let's continue. So first of all, let's get into some general tips when it comes to the contextual dialogue, okay? So be concise. You should only write what is necessary given that there's a word limit. Yes, you have to fill out the responses of whoever they tell you you have to uh of who you would have to give the responses of a person. Sometimes that person could be you, what you would say, or what someone else would say. But you have to ensure that it is within the word limit because you have between 80 to 100 words. So be concise. Only put what is required. Do not be extravagant because, of course, then you can open up yourself to making mistakes, right? But that brings us to the point number 2. Even though there will be cues to help you follow the dialogue, it is important that you read ahead to know exactly what should be said. Right. So part of being concise is going to be the only way you can be concise is if you understand what exactly is going on. Right. So this is why he said that point 2 is based on point 1. Because the only way to be concise is to know what is going on. Yes, they're going to give you cues to give you some form of guidance as to what the conversation is about, but you still need to read each response to see what, what response would be appropriate. So you have to read ahead in order to know what response to place, right? So the third general tip would be to make sure that your responses are logical, naturally, right? And a good test would be to observe whether the conversation flows, right? So to know if your responses are making sense, you would have to compare them with the responses of that have already been given for you, right? And if the conversation flows, then you know most likely that your responses make sense. But if your responses are not flowing with any conversation, then you know it is likely that your responses are not logical, okay? Naturally, you need to make sure that you're using correct grammar and punctuation. Very important, all right? So when it comes to the contextual dialogue, these are 4 tips that would take you a long way, right? Simple, but very important. Okay, so now we're going to look at some instructions, right? Or typical instructions for this section. So, section 3, contextual dialogue. In the blank spaces provided, complete the dialogue between you and your mother. Give your responses in Spanish using between 80 and 100 words. You and your family are about to travel to another country to celebrate a relative's birthday. You and your mother are making final preparations before leaving the house. Responses to all of the cues listed below must be included in the completed dialogue. 1, purpose of the trip and preparations for travel. 2, information about the gifts you and your siblings bought for your aunt. 3, arrangements to ensure the house is in order before leaving. 4, organization of travel documents, and 5, your reassurance that everything will be fine. Mhm. So these are the cues that you were given. So these are supposed to help you in constructing your answers. But like I said, you need to still read each. So we are speaking from our own point of view, right? But we will be provided with the responses of the mother. So we have to read ahead. So we have to, every time we have to respond, we have to read ahead. We have to find out what the mother said next to know what we should say, right? Or would have said, so that the conversation makes sense. Okay? So let's see. All right, so let's start. And the red would represent my responses, right? Because at the end of, at the end of the day, we were instructed to give our responses, right? So let's go. And of course, I included the English translation. Madre, estoy casi lista para el viaje. No, sorry. Go back. Um, right. Let's go. Estoy casi lista para el viaje. ¿Piensas que es una buena idea darle a tu tía esta sorpresa de cumpleaños? And of course, that translates to, I am almost ready for the trip. Do you think that it is a good idea to give your aunt this birthday surprise? No, I have to respond to her. But in order for me to know what response is appropriate, I have to see what the mother says next. So let's see what she says next. Tienes razón. Le gustan las sorpresas. Pero, ¿dónde están tus hermanos? No quiero perder el vuelo. All right. So this is what she says afterwards. You are right. She likes surprises. So then and there, we know that my first response has to talk about her liking surprises, okay? Because the mom responds by saying, you are right. She likes surprises, right? And then she proceeds to answer, of course, but we are your siblings. I do not want to miss the flight. So our first response has to be talking about the aunt liking surprises. So this is what I said. Por supuesto, a ella le va a encantar porque siempre me dice que nos extraña. Ujú. Además, a ella le gustan las sorpresas. Ujú. So I include that at the end, that she likes surprises. And also that she misses us, which should be them, the family, right? All right, so let's continue on. So we just would have gone through the mother's response, second response. So let's see what the mother says here again. Diles que se apuren. Ustedes tienen todo preparado. ¿Qué pusieron en los maletas? So because of that response, I would have to, my response would have been something along the lines of saying, okay, they're almost ready or something like that, because the mother says, tell them to hurry up. Diles que se apuren. So the only way the mother would tell them to hurry up is if they aren't ready. You see what I mean? So you have to read ahead to know what to write. So I said, ellos casi están listos. Voy a chequear ahora mismo. So they're almost ready. I'm going to check right now. Now we have to read ahead again. Espero que ustedes tengan los regalos al final que le compraron a ella. So I hope you have all the gifts. What ultimately, or in the end, what did you buy for her? So I said, hold on. Right. So that. But I have to go forward to know what I should say. So let's do that. Right. Son buenos regalos son bastante útiles. Ya dejaste todo en orden en la casa? No. The mother says that they're good gifts and they're quite useful. So obviously I have to mention there what I bought for the aunt. So I said, well, not I, but we, because it's talking about the siblings, right? So le compramos joyería y zapatos. So we bought her jewelry and shoes. And then the mom says, well, those are good gifts and they're quite useful, right? And did you leave everything in our at home, all right, or in the house? So let's look ahead now. What did the mom say next? ¿Tienes todos nuestros documentos para el viaje? Do you have all our travel documents? Okay. So you would have to respond to this question about leaving everything in order at home, right? Because obviously you can't say, well, yes, what I was about to say, well, you can't talk with travel documents because the mother's just about, she's now asking about that. So you have to talk about leaving everything in order at home, right? So I said, claro que sí, apagué todas las luces y cerré todas las puertas con llave. Yes, of course, I turned off all the lights and locked all the doors. Yes. So let's go forward again. ¿Tienes todos nuestros documentos para el viaje? Do you have all of our travel documents? All right. So let's skip to see what the mom says down here. Claro. Sin ellos no podemos viajar. ¿Estás segura que no has olvidado nada? So of course, without them we cannot travel. Are you sure that you haven't forgotten anything? No. The mother says, of course, without them we cannot travel. So you have to mention the specific travel documents, right? The documents that are needed to travel. So I said, sí, tengo los pasaportes y los billetes de avión. ¿Cómo podemos viajar sin ellos? So you see, I have the passports and the plane tickets. How can we travel without them? You see? Because the mother says, claro, sin ellos no podemos viajar. Right. So asking that rhetorical question, ¿Cómo podemos viajar sin ellos? Would be appropriate because the mother starts off by saying, of course, without them we cannot travel. Right? And then she proceeded to ask the question about she proceeded to ask if I was sure that I hadn't forgotten anything. Right? So let's see what she says afterward. Claro que estoy inquieta. Sabes que siempre me preocupo antes de viajar. Of course I am worried. You know that I always worry before traveling. All right? So in my response, I would have to mention about the mother being worried for sure. I would have to talk about the mother being worried, right? But before I do that, I try to calm down the mother, right? By saying, todo está bien, no te preocupes, mamá. Siempre estás preocupada cuando viajamos. Everything is fine. Not worry, mom. You always worry, or you are always worried when we travel. So that would be an appropriate response because Imam says, of course I am worried, right? You know that I always worry before traveling, but I will, reassured her that everything was in order, right? All right, and then the last line, gracias mi vida, ojalá sea así. So because Imam says, thank you, my dear, my darling, right? I hope it will be so. You pretty much have to reassure her again that everything will be okay, right? So I said, entiendo, pero todo saldrá bien. I understand, but everything will go well, right? And my word count was 89, right? Because remember, you have between 80 to 100 words, right? So you don't have unlimited words. So you just need to make sure you understand what is happening in the dialogue. You've been given cues to help you, but literally every cue is not going to be to help you with each and every single response, which is why it's still important for you to read ahead to know what response would be appropriate, right? So, yes, this brings us to the end of this presentation. I trust that it was helpful. Gracias por ver y nos vemos.